Imagine wrapping up not one, not two, but 3 major lawsuits, major battles, literally across the United States with you and your company versus the federal government. You just locked down an agreement, a settlement agreement, where you feel like you're able to accomplish everything that you set out to do. Big win. You're toasting it, and then all of a sudden, 11 states sue you again. That's the ride that Lawrence DeMonico and Rare Breed Triggers is on right now as I'm filming. Both Lawrence DeMonico, president of Rare Breed Triggers, as well as Glenn Bellamy, one of their top patent attorneys, were generous enough to fly to Wisconsin, my home state, shoot in this undisclosed bunker location to chat about what's been going on with Rare Breed Triggers, what's been going on with all these lawsuits. The total interview was a little over an hour and a half, so we chopped it into 3 different sections, kind of relating to different areas of what was going on. This is part 3. Be sure to check out part 1, what led up to the settlement agreement, what was that like negotiating both in front of the scenes as well as things that kind of happened off stage. Part 2, you can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. How does the federal government, how do agents, how do federal prosecutors play? Is it fair? Is it honorable? Or is it something else? You decide. In part 3, we go into the fact that no sooner was this battle over than another wave of opponents come over the hill to charge. We're going to be talking about the new lawsuit, what that means for Rare Breed Triggers, and a very, very interesting twist. Very interesting twist about it. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. You're back in court dealing with this. So no sooner than maybe you put down your glass of scotch, your celebration about the settlement agreement.
And it was rye.
Rye, okay, all right. Rye. Fair enough. Then all of a sudden, what happens next? You got 11 states suing you, and as well as all the original, the batch of folks who were part of your lawsuit, right? But you've got one new curious co-defendant when the 11 states are suing you. You now have the federal government as a co-defendant because 11 states who, let's just say, they aren't known for being pro-gun by and large, okay? Unfortunately, Colorado, it really pains me to see Colorado on that list now. But nonetheless, 11 states are now suing you all and the federal government as a co-defendant, alleging what?
They are alleging ultra vires, which is a Latin term that roughly means acting beyond your authority or beyond what you're allowed to do. So they claim that what the government, that this settlement they entered into was beyond the authority they had to enter into. That's the large thing. They're attacking what they call redistribution plan. And they're attacking it in various ways. They're saying, well, it's not our right to give them back to people who weren't NAGR members or part of that plaintiff pool. It's not our right to give them back to anybody who lives in one of our states where we either have under state law made them illegal or tried to make them illegal, or we want to make them illegal. And they're going so far as to say, if you give them back to people elsewhere, they'll end up in our state. So we have standing to stop. And basically the whole, the reasoning for why the entire redistribution plan is ultra vires is that they're machine guns. So they're asking to relitigate the question of are these machine guns? And that's what they're arguing now, is to try to relitigate that question and have another bite at that apple.
Yeah, I mean, once more, the monster is coming back out of the closet of trying to resurrect the ATF rule, seemingly do an end around the vacatur, do an end around Cargill, from the United States Supreme Court, and once more try to say that this is firing more than one shot per function of the trigger. Now, of course, they may disagree with that assessment because they'll say, well, look, we're looking at shooter input now. We're allowed to look at that. One shot per function of the trigger is vague, and therefore the ATF gets to stick their foot in the door and they get to interpret what Congress had intended. That seems to be the brief thrust of some of their filings as part of the new lawsuit.
So the prequel to this feature is, while the appeal was pending in the Fifth Circuit, this same group of states petitioned to intervene as defendants, to make them co-defendants with the federal government in that case. Now, the case had already had oral argument in December, and there was a new administration came in, and their point was, we fear the new administration won't keep pursuing this as hard as we would like to, so let us step in their shoes so we will never let this, we will keep going. And the court said, no, you can't do that. Just no thanks. You can't do it. In fact, it was denied the same day it was filed.
That's very unusual.
Yeah. So then the settlement was entered, and the appeal got withdrawn in the Fifth Circuit, and they filed another motion to intervene in the Fifth Circuit to say, oh, now we really need to be involved in it because look, what we said would happen has happened. They're not pursuing this. We need to be able to. That wasn't shot down on the same day because it was filed over a weekend, and it was not until Monday that got shot down, and it was shot down just saying the case is already dismissed. So
yeah, and
there's nothing to decide here. So they were really, really trying, and then this is their next
the next play.
Shot.
You're right. And, fundamentally what they're after, well, seemingly two things at once, right, is they want to stop the return of the FRT triggers, right? They were 11,000 and change. I think it was just under 12,000 that they're saying have been seized from the general public or retailers or something like that, maybe to say nothing of what they have from your inventory. But there's 11,800, I think, in change is what we're talking about there on the battlefield.
We don't know whether that includes the ones seized from manufacturers or not. We don't know.
Right. Okay. So that's part of the fun transparency issues that we've got going on. Years of litigation, and we still don't have an answer to that question, right? So there you go. But in order to get there, they're once more bringing up the specter of, these are machine guns. And if you read their brief, and I'll link it down below in the description box, I'll be charitable. It is disingenuous at best, okay? And the reason why I say that is because they throw FRT triggers into the same category as Glock switches, as all these other things that are floating around out there, machine gun conversion devices, MCDs, as they call them in their brief, right? This is just another example of the exact same species, the exact same thing. That's what they keep hammering on there. And then in their brief, they say, look at all these things that MCDs do. They're part of this violence and that violence and all this other kind of stuff. And as I'm reading through this, now keep in mind, I'm now down to paragraph 61, 62. I mean, this is not like, lawyers aren't known for being short, right? So this is a long way through, and I'm waiting for it. I had notes on my laptop of when are we going to get to the point of finding out exactly how much harm these evil FRT-15 triggers have been part of, right? Because their whole claim is that these are machine guns bad, right? In essence,
right.
That's what they're saying. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, something that's really nice about this is I'm sure that these super anti-gun litigants, these anti-gun plaintiffs, these anti-gun states, they've gathered every shred of evidence out there of how much damage these 100,000 plus FRT triggers have done. And at this point, pushing 4 to 5 years, give or take.
That's right.
Right? What they found was one example that they cited, paragraph, I think 62, 61, I don't know, something like that in their brief, okay? Where they found one example of someone misusing a firearm that had an FRT trigger in it on some bad stuff. They didn't report anyone got hurt or killed, thankfully, but that's it. Once more, I appreciate you checking out the video. Be sure to let me know that you like it by hitting that like button, subscribe, and of course, comment down below. Join the discussion about what you think about this entire thing. If you've been following this journey all along, you've now seen all 3 videos. So let me know about what you think, and let me know if you're actually one of those souls that made it through all 3, what you think about this whole picture. Be sure to follow that. And what do you think will happen next? Should the federal government and should states be allowed to do things like this? Just general lawfare, so to speak. Or should there be some sort of check on that? Let's get back to the video. Now, I want to couch this in context. And I warned these gentlemen right before we fired up the cameras that I brought some math. And anytime you hear about a lawyer doing math, that's code for I'm about to get sideswiped by the internet here. So I did some math to this point because, again, their whole lawsuit is machine guns bad. This is a machine gun. FRTs are evil. They described firearms as a scourge on society and gun violence as a scourge on our streets and communities and all this other kind of stuff. So there's around, between there's about 400,000 firearms per year that are misused as in the commission of a violent crime. Okay, this is just data I sourced. Okay, so there's different studies you can pick at. You can go higher, you can go lower. But you know what? I just threw this into ChatGPT. I'm like, let's just see what comes up. Okay. Now we know that there's between anywhere, around 400 to 500 million firearms in the United States. Okay, that number could even be higher. We don't know. All right. So what I was curious about was, okay, well, look, if the states are right, then we have the opportunity now for the first time now that we can see how many FRTs are out there and they've reported, hey, we've got this one issue where an FRT was used in an act of violence. And Lord knows if there were more, I'm sure they would have found it. I'm sure they would have packed it in here, paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, right? So I wanted to calculate, and again, lawyer math here, all right? But I wanted to calculate, and I found out that using the traditional amount of firearms that people say are in the United States, about 400 million, okay? That's kind of the traditional widely accepted number. It could be much higher, but that's the widely accepted number, so I kept it at that. And we know that annually about 400,000 firearms-ish are used in the commission of a crime, specifically a crime of violence. And I think I picked a slightly different number here between just to be even more charitable and generous to them. That means that each year about 0.125%, so less than 0.125 of all firearms are misused in the commission of a violent offense. Your FRTs, which we now have 4 to 5 years of data on, 100,000 plus. So this isn't something like it went to 5 collectors. We can't use this data, right? No. Widely distributed out there, right? So 5 years out there, 0.00114%, meaning that I guess if we're chasing safety, we should be figuring out how to install an FRT-15 in every single firearm out there because they're almost 800% safer. Almost 800% safer. So I don't know.
I like your math.
I like it. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think it's right. But I just thought that was interesting that, if this math is on their side, and I've learned as an attorney and just as a life skill, you have to pay very close attention to what someone's not saying. And if this math was on their side, you better believe it's going to be in there and it's going to be in the first paragraph or two, right?
Right.
I saw nothing like that. And I scanned this whole lawsuit just to find one example of 100,000 plus sold that are out there. And that just had me curious. And then, hey, apparently FRT-15s are 800% safer. So how about that?
So that brings me back to you say these are so dangerous and so awful that that's a reason to misinterpret the law as it's written, is what they're arguing. You should not pay attention to the words. You should pay attention to the effects, of what it ought to be or what it should mean, but not what it says. And that's just not how the American system works. And I'm not just waving a flag here. It's, take your argument to somebody who can change the law, not convince a court to misinterpret a law and get your win that way.
And that's not only you that's saying that. That's what Judge Reed O'Connor directly said as well, and as part of one of his orders and one of his rulings was, this is not how you do this. This is go to the legislature. And that doesn't mean that everything Congress does. The plaintiffs in this lawsuit also, they pulled out some vague quotes from Congress talking about this and that about machine guns, and it's like, yeah, but Congress also has the Fugitive Slave Act. Congress has, we got prohibition, we've got all these things. Just because Congress does something doesn't mean that it's constitutional. At the end of the day, that's the bedrock that our society is built on. So I'm 0% trying to throw mud at Congress, although I am obviously setting an example where they got something profoundly wrong. But it just goes to show that, yeah, take it to Congress. But ultimately, we know that this is always going to come back to the courts because they're just going to keep charging. They're going to keep pushing until that's where it eventually gets settled. Gentlemen, I know that you understandably cannot really talk about the new lawsuit. It would be the first thing I would tell you if you were my client.
I've got a ton I would love to talk about, but no, it would not be smart to have that conversation.
Would not be smart to have that conversation. But they really didn't waste any time just throwing you guys right back in.
So let's just say the focus of that lawsuit is against the federal government. But they acknowledge that these other parties are affected by it. And it's why the others are named in it. And, not just Rare Breed, but NAGR and all its members are affected by this. And so we all still have a dog in the fight. We don't, you can't just leave it to, oh, well, it's the government's fight. Let the feds fight against the states on this.
Right. No, you can't, because again, there will be another election. And we need to make sure that we've got the right guys in the arena. If teams get pulled off the field, if positions change, substitutions are made, you name it. And at the end of the day, I cannot stress enough for folks. I realize I touched on this in the introduction, but I cannot stress enough just how important FRTs are. When I was a baby attorney, I had a friend, and maybe you could say a mentor to some degree, who's was a retired federal prosecutor. And he made the observation to me, and it's just one of those things that have always kind of stuck out to me, of the fact that our rights are determined by people who are out there doing things, right? Our rights are not determined by the guy building the Ruger GP100, right? And God willing, if it's made it that far, Lord help us all, right? Our rights are going to be determined by people who are out there innovating, who are out there pressing technology, and are out there, I don't want to say testing the limits, but they're out there attracting the attention of the regulatory bodies, of law enforcement, and so forth. Even if you don't care about the product, right? Like I didn't care about bump stocks, but man, I cared about bump stock law.
Right.
We are all vested in that. And regardless of someone's position about FRT 15s, about any other new products you've got coming out around the turn, about Rare Breed, about you, Lawrence, about whatever, it doesn't change the fact that we are all also co-defendants of yours to some degree or another. We are also all sitting in that chair beside you in court, beside you in depositions, because so goes Rare Breed and other companies like Rare Breed who are out there innovating and are willing to take the arrows, bluntly, right? Willing to take the arrows. Someday, so goes the rest of us. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I appreciate you guys being out there.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, and I'm not being glib when I say that. I mean, I can't put myself in the shoes that you have walked for the last 3 years, 4 years now almost, right? And I don't know what your next 2 to 4 to 5 plus years might look like. I suspect you're just going to have lifetime friends that are lawyers. I'm sorry.
I think that's a reasonable possibility.
Yeah, but
lucky for me, I've become quite good friends with most of them and enjoy most of them. So it's not so bad.
I wouldn't admit that openly if I were you. That's not something I would wear as a badge, but hopefully you understand and you can hear, and maybe other folks want to chime into the comment section as well. But you're doing this in no small part for all of us. I realize that you're doing it for your family, you're doing it for your customers, you're doing it for your coworkers, your employees, you name it. But you're really also out there, and I commend you for having assembled the legal team that you did, for persevering as you have. and not throwing in the towel, which, let's face it, at any time a lesser man easily could. And I know that you're going to do, I'm sure, what's best at the end of the day for Rare Breed. And I have no doubt that what's best for Rare Breed is also ultimately going to be beneficial to the Second Amendment, because if you get squashed, who else is going to be out there innovating? And once they're no longer picking off guys like you, they're coming after ARs, which they're already, of course, doing. They're coming after normal capacity magazines. I know they're already doing that, but it is tying up resources on their end as well. And it is attracting that kind of attention. It is doing those sorts of things. And it is developing, most importantly, the good policy, the good precedent, the good case law that we need that's going to protect, even if you're not into FR-15s, your AR-15s, your Glock 19, your all these other things that maybe people do care about. It's going to protect those. These are all, this is butterfly effect kind of stuff here, right? These are all connected at some level, whether people can see it or not. And once you get deep enough into the laws, you get deep enough into the policy, you get deep enough into the precedents, you can start to see how these are all connected. There are ripple effects. And I understand that. And that's the reason why among the reasons why I'm very, very supportive of you, your efforts, and your company and what you guys have been through and the fact you're willing to keep going.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much. And I wish you guys nothing but the very best of luck on the next turn of the wheel.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, once again, it was truly a pleasure working both on camera as well as off camera with both gentlemen. What you see on camera was the same thing, the same way they were off camera. It was truly a pleasure to hang out with them, to chat with them over the phone, you name it. Again, let me know what you think about all this down in the comment field below. We're going to release the unedited full interview very shortly. But first, let's close out with our ever popular quote of the day. This one comes from Benjamin Franklin, who wrote, quote, "They that can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Once again, I appreciate you sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.